Hello, and welcome to tonight's CF Discovery Series. I am Sue Landgraf, the Executive Director for Cystic Fibrosis Research Incorporated, CFRI, and I'm very pleased to be with you here tonight. The CF Discovery Series was designed to make vital CF information accessible to the CF community by presenting various speakers who are experts in their fields. Tonight, we look forward to our presentation on something very, very exciting and very relevant, Taking CF to College, Resources and Tools for Success with Carla Larson, followed by Dr. Ronnie Zeiger with smartpatients.com, a very new and exciting program. So I can't wait for him to share that with you. Before getting started, I would like to take a moment to thank Genentech, Chiesa USA, and Respirtech for sponsoring tonight's presentation. Their support covers the cost of the venue, the lovely refreshments, and all the other costs of our program. And I'd like to say hi to Chris, who is here tonight from Respirtech, sitting there with his teddy bear, right? I would also like to note that no other information presented tonight is intended for a patient's diagnosis or treatment. As always, we urge you to work together with your healthcare team for your medical treatment. Tonight's program, live from the Crown Plaza Cabana Hotel in Palo Alto, is being produced by our CFRI-Live team, David Suhu, Scott Wakefield, and Mary Convento, who is tracking questions from our online participants. I encourage you to ask questions, whether you are here in the audience or part of our online community. And for those of you who are unable to join us tonight but are with us online, we're very glad that you can join us, and it's very easy to participate. All you have to do is click in the chat box on your screen and type in your questions. So let's get started. Tonight's topic is becoming more relevant as our CF children are aging, and they are working towards going to college and having that career that they've always wanted. So it is my pleasure to welcome Carla Larson, counselor and academic advisor with the Accessible Education Center at San Jose State University, who will share key resources available to college students with cystic fibrosis that will help balance their studies and their healthcare needs. And after Carla has finished her talk, there will be time for questions and answers before Dr. Ronnie Zeiger takes to the podium. So please help me welcome Carla. Thank you, Carla.
Hello, and I am very happy to be here tonight as part of this presentation. Again, my name is Carla Larson, and I work at San Jose State University in the Accessible Education Center. Even though I'll be talking about San Jose State's campus resources and our department, the EAC, I hope the main topics I cover can be applied to any school, any college that you decide to attend, whether it's a 2-year school, a 4-year university, a private school, technical school, graduate school, whatever. And I'm going to begin with the Accessible Education Center because that's my home base. It's been my home base for the last at least 12 years. And just last year, we decided to change our name. And that began a whole process, and it was a long process. And we did this so that we could better align with our mission statement. And we discussed it, we researched it, we voted on it, we brainstormed names, we went back, discussed it more. So like I said, it was quite a process. But we finally came to the point where we said, let's do it. So about every 20 years, it looks like the Accessible Education Center has changed its name. And I bet every college that you can think of here in the United States will have some sort of accessible education center. We'll all have similar mission statements, but we all have different names, a lot of titles out there. So whether it's a Disability Student Services, Disability Resource Center, Accommodation Central, whatever they call themselves, we all do the same sort of thing. And that's where I'm hoping that if you do decide to go to college, that you'll take these options into consideration, because this could make your success at college a better way, a better chance to do it. So the first thing I would suggest is whatever college you're looking into, look their website up and see what kind of disability services they offer there. Look their department up. Also, if you can, find out how to get registered with their department. And let me get to that point here. We have a kind of a three-step process to get registered with our department. You schedule an appointment, basically. You can either call, come in, email, whatever, to get a hold of us. And then submit your disability documentation. It could be, and they kind of, again, fall into three categories: disability documentation. Most of it comes from a medical disability verification form, obviously for CF. You can have psychological disability, learning disability documentation, so whatever type of documentation you have. And even if you're coming straight from high school and you have what they call an IEP, that's an individualized education plan, or a 504, or a SELPA, there's different things in high school that they can give you. We'll take that. Sometimes it will suffice for disability documentation, and sometimes we'll do it on a provisional basis. So each school district kind of does that different for the high schools. The main thing, though, is the third step, and that's meeting with one of our counselors. I'm one of the counselors, and we have two others. We have Melody Cameron, and she used to work in the Career Center here at San Jose State, and we kind of stole her. And then we also have Ignacia Villa-Velasquez, and she is amazing. She is amazing. What can I say about Iggy? Here's an example of our medical documentation that you can find online. Sometimes you've had a doctor that's already done some sort of letter for you about your disability, and sometimes you're like, I've never done this. I don't even know what they want. So if you're like, I'm not sure what they're looking for, look on that college's website and see what that department wants. And they'll usually have some sort of form for you to fill out. And sometimes that form is, we get it all kinds of different ways. And the recent amendment to the American Disability Act has made it a lot more flexible of what kind of documentation we do take. So that's actually a good thing. Now the main thing is that wherever, again, you go to college and wherever they're what they call themselves as far as academic services, as far as disability accommodations, the services that we provide are very, very similar. And here's a list of some of the services that we provide at San Jose State. We have academic counseling. That can definitely help. You figure out what classes to take, where you're headed, get an educational plan together. We have the Alternative Media Center. They're the people that format books, textbooks, course materials, that sort of thing. We have a Center for Accessible Technology. I'll tell you about all of these a little bit more in detail later. There can be a class assistant. Let's say that you have to take a lab, and it's like there's just no way that I can physically get the materials together to put a lab together. So a class assistant or a lab assistant is basically your hands and your feet. But you have to tell them what to do. They won't do anything unless you tell them to. Under our umbrella, we also have a deaf and hard of hearing program for students that are either hearing impaired or deaf. We have disability management, which is a huge thing. That's something where it so depends on each student, each person. Sometimes it's like, how do I do this? How am I going to ever accomplish this? Or how do I tackle this? And disability management is really important. And I know that all of you that have CF have to be some good problem solvers because you do it every day. You figure out, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to do this today? So disability management is that sort of problem solving. There's faculty accommodation information. We instruct the faculty, educate them, because sometimes they are clueless, to be really honest. We have learning disability assessment at San Jose State. We are so extremely lucky that we have Dr. Gary Bonanno, and he is a learning disability specialist, which is kind of rare. And at this point in time, he will do assessment for learning disability evaluation, and it's no cost to the student. So we're extremely lucky right now. And each year, he says, this is my last year, and he's been doing that This is my last year for 12 years now, since I've been there. So we keep talking them into staying with us. There are note takers, priority registration, which could be important for you, readers. And a lot of times now the readers, instead of a physical person reading, we make sure that you have training on software program that will help you do that. And one of the famous ones is called Natural Reader, Kurzweil. There's several of them out there. Real-time captioning, this is for the deaf and hard of hearing, sign language interpreters, and test accommodations. And truly, I saved the big one to the last. Test accommodation, it's huge. This is what most people will use as far as disability services, is test accommodations. It's basically, depending on your documentation, depending on what's been discussed, what's in the course syllabus as far as what kind of test it is, but basically it gives you extra time, because many times your medication that you take, your prescribed medication, can affect your cognitive ability, and it's sort of like, I am so much slower processing information now. So having that extra time does not give you an advantage over another student. It just levels that playing field. It just gives you equal access to that course's information. And so that extra time, sometimes I've had students tell me, it is, even if I have to take 5 minutes and put my head down, I know I'm going to be okay. I know I'm going to calm myself down and I can start. I've had some people that tell me that their thing is that when they get very stressed, and it happens a lot during test taking, it's sort of like my mind just shuts off. And I've had some students tell me they have little rituals. I have one student that tells me he brings his pencils in, and if he sharpens his pencils, then that's what calms him down. I say, whatever works. I'm so glad you have a method, a strategy. I have some students that say, you know, just taking it in a classroom is just, I just barely get started, and people are leaving, and my mind goes with those people that leave, and I haven't even started the test, and people are leaving already. So it's just sometimes a better space to take a test in. So every campus is going to have these types of accommodations. And I wanted to make sure that we go over another type of accommodation that's not exactly listed here, but when I was talking to Siri, I think, we were emailing each other, it came to where she said something about a lot of people that have CF. There are times that you cannot be in class. You are absent from the campus due to doctor's appointments, taking some sort of treatment, that sort of thing. And so the type of accommodation I wanted to make sure that you ask about, that you kind of put on your list for options, is that you could get an accommodation where you could, if you miss an assignment deadline or miss an exam, that you could be able to make that up without penalty. So if you are absent due to your disability, it's a disability-related reason, you could make that up. There's no really set amount of times you can be absent from a class. It so depends on that class, the course curriculum, what the learning outcomes are, but the lack of attendance or class participation, if it's due to your disability, cannot be counted against you. Unless you are absent so many times, so numerous, as to interfere with the learning process, or the instructor couldn't give you an adequate evaluation of your performance. If you hit that spot with us, we would talk. We would talk about maybe a late drop or something other. But at first, let's try the accommodation where you can make up missed assignments or tests. Another option I want you to put on your radar is taking a reduced number of units. I was just talking to Sue before this, and I think that is one of the valuable items you should discuss. I have a lot of students that come in and say, oh, I've been at the community college for so long. I've been there like 4 years, and now I'm here, and I just want to get done. Or I have a first-time freshman that comes in and says, I have got to be out in 4 years. To be quite honest, in all my experience working with students and setting up education plans, having a 4-year college degree is a really rare thing. And we would rather have you take a little less units per semester, maybe one less class, and have you not be overwhelmed, overloaded, worried about your GPA, having to worry about repeating a class because you have to take it over. So we'd rather have you in for the long run, so to speak. So taking less units and getting through with good GPA, as we say. Oh, I forgot another thing. I'll get to the cat here in just a little bit. Another thought that I had is if your campus that you want to attend has some online classes, that might be a really good alternative for you, depending on your learning style, of course. But at San Jose State, we offer usually about 40 to 50, not a huge amount, about 40 to 50 online classes per semester. So if you find it's like, wow, taking an online class and this works for me, that could be a good thing. It'd be no commute, not being on campus, being exposed to other people, so you kind of stay a little bit more infection-free. And the other thing that the CSU system has, this is the California State University. We have about 23 campuses in our system, and about half of them now offer what we call a course match. And the course match is if you are enrolled at your home campus and have paid full fees, and if you look online at Course Match and you see that another CSU campus has an online course that would be valuable for you towards your degree, you can enroll in that without any extra fees. And then once you're done with that online course, then you would have an official transcript from that campus sent to us, your home campus, and then we will update your transfer credit. So that could be a very good way also to take some coursework. Okay, so let me get on to CAT. We did try to find an acronym for dog, but we just settled on CAT here. We're proud of our Center for Accessible Technology. It's one of the biggest ones in all the CSU campuses. The biggest part of it, and this is a picture here, and the one that's to your left then, is the open lab. And that's the biggest part of CAT, is this open lab. There's about 30 stations, computer stations in there. And the main thing is that we have an amazing trainer. Her name is Wendy Lynn. And she can train in all kinds of adaptive software. There's lots of things out there that can be very helpful for you. So it's a good place also to study. I know when I was a student, going home and trying to study did not work for me. I had no discipline. So to be able to stay at the library, maybe in our computer lab, or whatever school that you're going to, staying in their library at their computer lab, that's where you'll get most of your work done, it seems like. Also connected with CAT is our Alternative Media Center. So the Center for Accessible Technology, like I said, it provides not only the students, but also SJSU employees with training. And like I said, we have an amazing place there that we're very proud of. As far as the Alternative Media Center, like I said, it's part of CAT, but the AMC, they're the people that will format textbooks into a desired format. They do Braille, they do large print, so they have all kinds of alternative media. And again, I was thinking this could be a good option, another one to put on your radar. Let's say that you're feeling absolutely lousy, and it's like, I just gotta lay down. I feel awful, and yet I've got lots of stuff I need to read tonight. I've got a couple classes, a couple chapters in these textbooks. I gotta read something. If you are a learner that is able to be what they call an auditory learner, that means that if you hear it, it sticks with you, it makes sense, then having your books formatted to where they're audio version, books on tape basically, then you could maybe lie down and hear what those textbooks have to say and retain that information. I know that really wouldn't work for me because I'm such a visual learner, but maybe if you have any kind of auditory learning strengths, that would be a good plan. And here's some of the different software programs that a lot of our students use. And like I said, Wendy is really, really good about training on these. Dragon Naturally Speaking, it sounds really simple to say this, but it's quite a bit of training. Of all the software programs, this is the one that takes the most training and, just practice, practice, practice. But Dragon Naturally Speaking, basically, once you learn it very well, you're able to speak and it types for you. And I've had some students come back and say, Carla, that's what got me through college, is being able to speak my ideas out loud. I'm not able to get them down on paper, but I can speak them out loud. So this could be a good program for you. And I understand from Wendy, you first build a profile where you basically open your textbook and start reading so that the computer program gets used to how you pronounce words. Then you take your personal profile and then you start where speaking out loud. And this is the tough part, to tell you the truth. The more you do it, the better you get, I understand. I tried just a generic one that Wendy gave me. I never knew how many times I said the word until I listened back to myself. If you can think and see that sentence in your head and put in the commas and the periods and all the punctuation, you'll have less and less editing to do. So when you get really good at it, there's less and less editing. I'm sure I'd spend more time editing than speaking for myself. Okay, Kurzweil 3000. Actually, Kurzweil, this gentleman, that's his last name, he's the first person on the block to set up what they call a basic document reader. And what a basic document reader does is you have text, sort of like some of the text we're seeing on the screen right now, and it digitizes it so that you can put in a headset and hear the text plus see the text. So some students find that a basic document reader is wonderful if you have a learning disability or if you're like, if I see it, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. If I hear it, it just makes more sense to me. And that way, if you have like multiple choice exams, we can format your test to where you can see it and hear it and respond. Read and Write Gold is very similar. It's also a basic document reader. Wendy right now tells me she loves this program, and it's less expensive than Kurzweil, but it's similar to Kurzweil. Natural Reader's another basic document reader, and this is the one that we use in our testing room. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles. It just does one thing, and that way the instructors are less likely to be concerned about us programming or formatting their tests. Inspiration's a good one if you have problems organizing your thoughts. It's very, very flexible. It's very inexpensive to buy. A lot of high schools use this, and it's a way to, some people think better in words, some people think better in pictures, some people do mind maps better, some people do outlines better. It's very flexible that way. You just throw out whatever your topic is, any ideas that come to mind. They don't have to be in any order. And then you start drawing lines, basically. And after you draw your lines, oh, that relates to that, that relates to that. And then at the end, you push a magic button and it outlines it for you. So for some students, it's a good way to start an essay. And then JAWS. JAWS is basically for students that are visually impaired or blind. and it basically reads everything on a screen. And we have a number of students that use JAWS because they need that. And I have to admit, when I'm walking through the lab and hearing it, it does sound a little bit digitized and robotic, but they seem to be able to listen to JAWS and know exactly what it says to them, plus carry on a conversation with you. It's pretty amazing. All right. Like I said, under San Jose State, we have the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program under our Accessible Education Center. And they provide real-time captioners, sign language interpreters, and they also have assisted listening devices. And remember how I said test accommodations were huge as far as disability accommodation? Here's our testing center. This is what it looks like. There's about, good 30, 40 stations in there, and it's buzzing at final exam time. We usually, in those 5 days, we administer over 800 tests in that 5 days' time, which is amazing. And that's where Ignatius comes in. She's quite the organizer. And if you find that you need to have, because sometimes our online coursework, the instructor will decide that, yes, the coursework's online, but you're going to take the actual midterm and final on campus. If you find yourself in that situation, it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because I don't want to expose myself to the mass population. I would recommend that, yes, you come into our testing room, and yes, you take the test there, and yes, we can give you a private room. Okay. Oops. I want to talk about financial aid. A lot of students, I find, really have a problem with financial aid. It's that part of the equation of attending college is sort of like it's the last thing you want to think about. How am I going to pay for this? So, to be honest, financial aid is one of the first things you need to think about. And at San Jose State, like all CSU schools, state university schools, there's basically 7 steps to apply to financial aid. And again, looking on that college's website, checking out what they have for the financial aid scholarship is a good thing to do. And face the facts of, like, how much am I going to owe? How am I going to do this? And if you can, always try financial aid where it is the grant money where you don't have to pay it back, or scholarship money, but really, really think about any type of a student loan. We don't want you to get through your college and then have to think about paying back a student loan. So try any other avenue. And sometimes in the last, like, I have nothing else I can't do, I need it now, it's like, okay, let's look at the student loan. So, but before you do that, make sure you speak with a financial aid counselor at that campus. Basically, you have to think about your financial aid at least a year before you're going to attend that school. And you're either going to complete what they call a FAFSA. It's something online. It's the free application for financial, I forget all the acronym, but it's for financial aid. And the key part that it's a free application. If you ever get on a website where it says, hey, for this small amount of $50 or something will help you apply for financial aid, don't go with that website. That website is basically bogus. You need to just know that it's a free application. You can either do the free application or you can do the California Dream Act. You won't do both, you do one or the other. The next thing you're going to do is either submit a student aid report or if you're under the DREAM Act, you're going to do the California Aid Report. You're going to submit whatever documentation that they require, and the documentation a lot of times is tax return, and if you're under 24, it's going to be from your guardian or your parent. And you're going to submit that documentation to whatever campus. And I know at San Jose State, we do not take emailed or faxed documentation in for financial aid. It has to be submitted in person or basically through the mail. Then there's an evaluation process that takes place, and if you qualify, they'll put basically what they call a fee deferral on your record, and that means that the monies will not come directly from you, but from either the state or the federal. And then you'll receive a notification of your award, and then you'll get your disbursement of aid, Yahoo! And then to do your part, that is, if you are an undergraduate student, you want to maintain at least a 2.0 GPA to continue with financial aid. And if you're a graduate level student, you want to make sure it's at least a 3.0. And if you are registered with the Disability Services Program, or the AEC with us, financial aid usually takes a requirement that you have at least full-time status. And as far as semester units, that would be 12 semester units. And if you are registered with the Disability Services, they are able to support you to take reduced units. Now, I have to admit again that under the grant money, the financial that comes from the federal government, it's always prorated, even with our support to have reduced units for you. And I know a lot of students have to make this decision every semester. Can I be full-time this semester? Can I possibly take that 12 units? Or do I have to make a decision and know that I'm going to take 9 units or reduced units and just know I'm going to get less grant money? So sometimes you have to think about that and make that decision, obviously. And scholarship information. I found on your website, the first one there is lots of information about scholarships, specifically for people that deal with cystic fibrosis. Below that is a website for what they call the Fast Web. Again, it's for anybody, United States, any state. And you can go on, and there's so many scholarships. You have to kind of alter, not the word I'm not looking for, but you have to kind of define what you're looking for, because otherwise you'd be on that for days looking through all the scholarships. So if you can kind of define your search, you'll do a lot better. And the main thing about scholarships is 3 things. Start your search early. Have official transcripts and test scores on hand, because many times when you apply for a scholarship, that's one of the things that they ask you to send in. And request at least 2 letters of recommendation ahead of time, so you have that ready to submit when you're ready to submit a scholarship. And I've had many students tell me that scholarships are kind of like the neglected financial aid that's available for students, because it comes in smaller increments of money. And it's like, wow, you know, I'm going to put all that work into, and it's only going to be $500. But remember that $500 you don't pay back. So if you're going to get all this information together for one scholarship, apply for several at a time. That's our recommendation. Okay, now again, this is San Jose State, but every college campus that I know of anyway, they're going to have a health center, some sort of student health center. They're going to offer basic clinical services. At San Jose State, we even have a physical therapist there. We have a basic pharmacy, and they fulfill prescriptions just at cost. They have a women's health center. They have all kinds of classes in nutrition. They have a lot of services for students. And this would be something, again, I would really say one thing to check into that college is their website and see what kind of health services are offered at that campus. And at San Jose State, our health center, it's like I said, it's kind of basic clinical services, but they have, if you're going to be traveling, and it's like, oh, geez, I need to get a series of shots or something before I can use this passport. Our health center will really help you out there. I had students come back and say, oh, man, I'm so happy I went over there because I got the shot for cost, and it happened very quickly and didn't have to wait. The Career Center, this is a huge one. And again, every campus I know has some sort of career center. And some students say, Carla, how come you're telling me about the Career Center? I barely got into San Jose State and you're pushing me out. It's like, yeah, I know. But the Career Center has got many things that could be very, very helpful to you. At San Jose State, we have what we call Sparta jobs. Those are the jobs that are available on campus for students. A lot of students love working on campus because it's very convenient, obviously, no commute, and they're very, very flexible in their hours. And they pay basically minimum wage, I have to admit. They will do job fairs. They will invite all kinds of companies several times a semester, so you can come down and see what jobs, and do what they call your 1-minute interview. And they have all kinds of things about how to prepare for your 1-minute interview. You can explore majors and careers. I know a lot of freshmen come in, they're like, I'm undeclared. I have not a clue of what I want to do or what major I want to get into and what I want to do after I'm done with my degree. So they have a lot of workshops, a lot of help, and good counselors about that. They're very good about finding jobs and helping you find an internship. Sometimes the internship's even paid. Even if it's not paid, though, and it's a volunteer type of position for an internship, it looks wonderful on your resume. That way you are a proven commodity, and that helps so much. We even have what we call Spartan Staffing. It's basically a independent company that headhunts, and they work primarily with students that have disabilities, because many companies that have a certain amount of employees are charged by the government that they have to have at least 7% of their employees with people with disabilities. So they headhunt pretty aggressively. So that's a good thing to put on your radar too. And the other one I want to talk about from the Career Center is what we call Workability 4. This, every state you go to in the United States, they will have some sort of Department of Rehabilitation. And that Department of Rehabilitation, their mission is to provide you with a college degree so that you can get a better paying job. And they are, I have to say, to be eligible for them is a little bit more than it used to be. They will now only pay for your fully pay for your last 2 years of college. They figure that you can be a transfer student from a community college here in California. So they don't, if you start as a first-time freshman and you're under the Department of Rehab, they may not pay your full tuition for the first 2 years, but for the last 2 years, whatever your financial aid doesn't award you, whatever you don't get in grant money, they will make up the difference. So it's a great program. Can't say enough about them. And part of the Department of Rehabilitation is what we call Workability 4 in California. There's a Workability 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the Workability 4 is for the four-year colleges. And this is a collaboration between the Career Center, the Accessible Education Center, Department of Rehab, the Health Center, and the Counseling Center. We all come together to help that student find an internship, find employment, find that job. So the people that work in the Workability 4 at San Jose State, they're two wonderful people. And they will go to great lengths to make sure that you are well taken care of. So the Career Center is a good place to go even before you're thinking about getting finished up with your degree. Counseling services, another program that every college I know will have some sort of counseling. And counseling services, I think, are very, very important. This is for personal counseling. What we do at the Disability Services is more of a disability management counseling, and I do a lot of educational counseling. But personal counseling, because college is stress. What can I say? It's built-in stressors, and some days you get more stress than others. And college students have very complicated lives. And then on top of that, you folks will also have your issues with your CF, so it's like, wow, I have a full plate. And if you ever find that you are in a meltdown mode, the counseling services are a wonderful place to go and just say, I need someone to talk to. They are so very good at that because they do it for all kinds of students. They understand. They could care less about documentation. They don't want documentation. So you just go up there and say, I need to talk to someone. And at San Jose State, and I think it's probably similar to other colleges, they will do a little bit of what they call an intake. They will spend a few minutes with you, 15, 20 minutes, to kind of ask you how best to work with you. Are you better one-on-one? Would one-on-one counseling be your best thing? Are you better maybe in some sort of support group? Would it be better for a workshop for you? What's the best way to work with you? And then they kind of start plugging you in to make sure that you don't feel like you've dropped into the crack of life. So anyway, knowing where that counseling service department is a really valuable place. And I should mention about the health center too. Health center and counseling services, if you can just go over there and especially with the health center, a lot of times they'll have an intake form. If you can fill that out ahead of time, that's one less hassle that you'll have when the time is there for you to use it, and you don't have to spend that 10 minutes filling out a form. So again, counseling services offers workshops, support groups. They have a case manager at San Jose State to help students access community resources. Food's a huge. There are many students that I work with anyway, where they are, they're homeless. They live in their car. And so food's a big thing. Legal services are there, health insurance, and immigration resources. Because the California DREAM Act, we have a number of students, that's part of the eligibility for the California DREAM Act and financial aid is that if you're undocumented. So this immigration resources is another big issue. Okay. Housing. I would think that if you decided to live on campus at whatever college again, and in their dorms, you would want to make very clear to them that you have accommodations that you'll need in the dorms. And most oftentimes, the process is that once you're admitted to that campus, then you apply for housing, and they have a separate application. And again, big campuses have all kinds of housing alternatives. At San Jose State, we've got what we call the bricks. They're the oldest things. The classic bricks are supposed to be called. We have Joe West Hall. That's the big tall one. It's probably about 12 stories. We have the Campus Village. It's only about 5 years old. It's the biggest. In fact, that's what that picture of is, the Campus Village. And now, new to open in fall 2016, because we're totally out of space, is we're going to have a Campus Village 2. They mistake that 2 for a Z there, but it's Campus Village 2, which that one building is going to accommodate 850 students, and they're all going to be first-time freshmen. Can you imagine? So when you apply for housing, be very, very clear on what you'll need as far as accommodations. Do you need a first floor? Do you need to have no roommates? Can you be able to tolerate one roommate or 2 roommates? Do you need any kind of special refrigeration unit, air filter, anything you can think of? You need to be very clear on that application. And I know at San Jose State, the application for housing, one of the first questions they ask you is, do you need accommodations? And I think because it's the very first question, most people skip right over it. It's like off the radar. So just be very clear that they understand what you need right up front. Obviously, they will try as best they can if they do find that you need accommodations other than what you've been assigned to, but it's so much easier if you do it up front. All right. The other thing is tutoring. Again, when you are ill, not feeling well, taking medication, doing kinds of treatment and everything, sometimes what you did years earlier is sort of like, man, this is just not working. And I've had students that have done very, very well in their classes, and they come in and they say, Carla, I'm in this class, and I am lost. What am I going to do? And I start asking them why they're lost. And it's sort of like, I don't understand. I'm up with the reading. I've done, the assignments. I've done some quizzes. I've not done very well in the quizzes. I've done this. I've done that. And I just feel lost. It's just so foreign to me to feel this lost. Sometimes there is a need for tutoring. And some people use tutoring a lot. They're used to it. And other people are like, really? Me? Need tutoring? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm not kidding. Sometimes that's what you need. You just need someone else to explain that concept in their words, and it's like, oh, I think I'm getting this. So sometimes that's all it is. The Writing Center at San Jose State, we have an excellent writing center, and again, I'm sure a lot of campuses have good writing centers. And sometimes when you get into upper division courses, the instructor gives you less and less information or less and less instruction on what they want. They just want a paper or analysis, and they're like, and then you're home and you're going like, what? How am I going to do this? So sometimes having that writing center can be very valuable for you. A lot of the departments will have their own tutoring. At San Jose State, the Accessible Education Center, we do not have our own tutors. Many of the other campuses, their disability services program will have their own tutors right in that department. So it so depends on each campus how this is run. But finding out about tutoring ahead of time, I would really recommend it. I put transportation solutions in here because at San Jose State, once you have paid fees, you will receive a fee sticker, we call it, and it lets them know that you paid fees for that semester, and it also acts as a VTA pass. So you can ride the California Valley Transportation, the VTA buses, and also the light rail for free for the semester. It's not valid on anything but the VTA and the light rail. And the other thing is that depending on the campus, some campuses, they actually provide a shuttle for you. I know that UC Berkeley has a good shuttle program because they have an expansive campus and they got hills and all kinds of stuff. So they have a shuttle system. San Jose State, we have a smaller campus, it's flat, and we've never had a shuttle system. They never said it's been required for us. So look at that too. See if there's, because sometimes it's like, wow, how am I going to get from point A to point B? And I've only got 10 minutes, and me traveling or being very mobile is not my strength. So check out what kind of shuttle system they might have on campus. Food options. Every campus is going to have some sort of food options, and the bigger the campus, the more food options. But I could just say kind of one thing. As far as if you're on a larger campus, they offer food 24/7. Gone are the days where they have lunch served in the dining commons in a 2-hour window, or breakfast in an hour-and-a-half window. Those days are gone. Food is served throughout the campus, different locations. They have carts. They've got coffee carts and all kinds of stuff. So finding food throughout the day is easy to do, and it doesn't have to be at any certain time. And it's basically, like I said, 24/7. And I understand that with CF, I was talking to Sue, and that grazing throughout the day is probably the better mode to go. So make sure you check out their food options so you don't get too hungry. I put in recreational because San Jose State, we have lots and lots. We have pool, we have the Associated Students Recreation, and the Associated Students Recreation, they have intramural sports. For a very low fee, they have some yoga classes, cycling classes. Over at the event center, we have racquetball courts that's for free, weight rooms. There's all kinds of stuff. And again, the larger campuses are going to have all kinds of things. And being yoga or something during the day, I have students say that they have a gym membership, but they rarely do it. But if they're on campus, they will do it. So it's a good thing to check into. All right. I am going to finish my presentation, and is there any questions right now?
I actually have a question.
You bet.
I have a couple of questions. I found it really interesting. I think you covered a lot of, very general, broad information for students that have issues, health issues and other learning issues. But with CF, I was particularly struck by the transportation issue on campus. So when an individual has lung disease and they're unable to walk long distances, and there is no shuttle available at a college, like at San Jose State, then what accommodations are there that enables a student to go all the way across campus to get to their next class? Because they physically can't do that. So is there some accommodation, because you talked earlier about making accommodations in like an IEP type situation, for them to come in late to a class and not be dinged for being late? What type of accommodations are made? Or are there taxi services? Are there wheelchairs? Is there some way to get these folks across campus?
I would say as far as wheelchair, Sue, most campuses will not provide wheelchairs because it's a liability issue. But if we can help you schedule your classes with priority registration to where they have far enough apart the window of time, that might help. If we have a number of students that have electric carts that they use, not wheelchairs, but electric carts that they use, that's very popular. The problem with electric carts is, for the most part, it doesn't seem to be a problem to leave them out in the hall. Sometimes you can drive them right into the class. Sometimes you have to leave them out in the hall. Sometimes you have to leave them at the end of the quarter and then get to class. So it's depends on what building, what classroom it is, that sort of thing. But at San Jose State, yeah, we really don't have anything that we could provide directly, other than, like I said, having priority registration to schedule your classes, or if there is a problem, to maybe include in accommodation letter that this student would arrive late and they will come in and not disturb the class, that kind of thing.
Then I would imagine if that was the case, then there would be further accommodations made, because if they do arrive late, then they might need somebody
Probably
to
need
be
a
a
note
note taker,
Mhm.
right?
Right,
And
or tape
something
record
similar
the
like that.
class. Mhm.
And then I was struck by the testing centers. I think that's a great idea, because oftentimes individuals with CF will need that extra time. The medication makes them foggy. It does take them longer to process,
Right.
depending on, the medication they're taking. But I'm wondering also if there are places, either at San Jose State or other colleges, where somebody with CF or a chronic illness can go to study in a safe, clean environment, rather than to have to make the trek back to their dorm room or go into, the library where there are lots of people, they don't want to catch the
Right.
germs.
You
Is
know,
there a similar situation?
At San Jose State, in our CAT, in our lab there, we have 5 private rooms, and that would be a good solution, I would say, would be to just make sure that we would reserve that room for you.
Just to be able to come in and
so
study during the day?
You can have that room and when they're, wipe it down, that kind of thing, before you come in, that sort of thing.
I'm hogging the mic. Does anybody else have questions? I could continue. I have other questions
Okay.
too.
I think there's,
There's online.
Hi, I have 2 questions, online questions. I want to make sure I'm prepared to take care of myself after I graduate from college, and that I can maintain the best possible health. Considering that I have cystic fibrosis, what are the fields of careers that I might want to consider?
wow, that is a very good question. That would take some really research, depending on your health, obviously. I don't know if I would recommend, being a rock climber or construction or something like that, but maybe finding, I'm trying to think, maybe an office type of job, where it's, you're not having to do a lot of traveling. Because some jobs there is a lot of traveling, and I don't know if I would recommend maybe a credential program, because again, you'd be among a wide variety of children that might have some disease, childhood diseases like chickenpox and measles and all. So, wow, that would take some research. I don't really have that answer right now, but if that person would like to email me, I could maybe come up with some more information. And also, there is at the Career Center an interest inventory, and also what they call a strengths inventory. Interest inventory is a little bit different than strengths, and if you wanted to do both assessments, we could maybe work that out with the workability for people, because they're the ones that actually kind of take that information and come up with a plan. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. A second question is, I'm going to be applying for college soon. I'm trying to find out as much as possible on medication coverage in different states. Do college clinics have insurance programs that I can combine with my existing coverage?
Yes. Yes, they do. Yeah. Most of them, when you pay fees, they will have their basic health fee, they call it, and that's just the basic clinic situation on campus. But you can always enhance it with health insurance that's available. Mm-hmm. You are so welcome.
That was very, very interesting, and I think it would be very helpful for all of our online listeners and those in the audience. those that are making their way to college, because it's not easy living with CF, and it's often not easy going to college. So when you combine the two of those, it can be very difficult. So thank you very much, Carla Larson. And if they have questions, they can get a hold of us, and we can get them in touch with you via email. That would be great. Well, thank you very, very much. So our next guest tonight is a wonderful, interesting man, Dr. Ronnie Zeiger with smartpatients.com, who's going to introduce to you a new online community for those with CF. And this goes really, I think, hand in hand with what we've just heard. So welcome, Ronnie.
Just a moment while I get connected here. Thank you so much for having me, CFRI and everyone else involved. So I want to share with you, both here and the many wonderful people I know are online, a resource that I think complements the kind of expertise that you just heard about from a counselor, and that is somewhere where you can get the perspectives of your peers. And I happen to be a physician, but now I spend most of my time with online patient communities. And I think a holistic approach to so many of the things that we do involves figuring out how things really fit into our personal situation. And it's very hard to answer those questions. And one of the perspectives that often helps is the perspective of those who are actually in our shoes or have been in our shoes recently. So Smart Patients is a system of online communities for patients and their loved ones. And we have a variety of different communities, and pretty recently we started a cystic fibrosis community. And to go there, to join the community, you can just go to smartpatients.com/cystic-fibrosis, and that's the page that I have shown here. And I'm going to give you a quick tour, and then look forward to answering any questions you might have about it. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you're logged in. One thing about this view that's a little bit different than you would really get is that to be respectful of the privacy of the people whose conversations we're partially looking at here, I've made it so that we don't see any of their usernames. So the one thing that you show everyone in the community is whatever name you choose to use in the system. And here we've just changed those names to kind of a boring ID number, again, just to be respectful of privacy. And I'm logged in here, and I'm just going to show you that the main action happens here in the middle. And there are conversations here. These happen to be real conversations that have happened recently. So a question about visitors in your home, and how do you think about preparing for visits when you have, in this case, a 6-month-old with CF. Here, a mom is asking about an upcoming clinic appointment and wants to get the perspective of her fellow moms about the kinds of things that she should be asking about. She happens to be a pretty with it parent of someone with cystic fibrosis, but she also knows that some of her colleagues might have ideas of things that she should be asking about that are just around the corner that might be useful. Questions about childcare, about positive culture results, different vests that people have had experiences with. And I'm going to show you what it looks like if you click on one of these conversations. We can see get a little preview that this one has 6 replies that I happen to not have read yet. And I'm going to click through on one conversation and show you what it looks like. And this one was a really interesting one because it transcends some of the boundaries that we often find when we're just talking to someone with one perspective. So this was an adult CF patient talking about her experience transitioning from the pediatric to the adult clinic. And this is a question that comes up a lot, actually, across many of the different communities. And one of the reasons that I wanted to show you this conversation is that the way that our communities are organized is that most of the CF conversations take place just among people affected by cystic fibrosis. But some of the conversations cross disease boundaries, and this was an example of one. And we have a pretty simple tag-based system. For those of you that are used to social media and Twitter, you have a feel for how tags work. And this conversation is not only was started by someone with CF, but was also tagged with transition. And it ended up including parents of kids with congenital heart disease and inflammatory bowel disease, some people dealing with transplants, because they were talking about issues much like you just heard about some of the issues of what it's like to go to college and how to prepare. Many of those issues, in fact, probably almost all of them, weren't really specifically about CF, and they were relevant to the CF community and to many others. So some of our conversations cross community boundaries, and we find, especially with issues that relate to caregiving or other issues that aren't that specific to the disease, there's so much we can learn from our peers, and the Smart Patient System is built in part to support that. A couple of other things I want to show you. We have a tool that allows a community to do surveys of its members. Sometimes you might have a question and someone will realize, you know, it would be really neat if we could ask this in a structured way and get a sense of how the community thinks about this in a way that's really easy to organize the results. So here, I helped the CF community who asked if we could do a survey to ask members to share their preferred airway clearance methods. So if I were a real member of the community, I could answer that I use the vest. I do oscillating PEP, and I might explain that, or I don't do any. I might explain, and I would submit this, and then we subsequently shared back with the community what each of them had said, without including anyone's names. But here is the wisdom from the community that you all just included, and this is just a tool that we built in response to requests from the community to be able to ask each other structured questions as well as unstructured ones. And the last part of the tour that I know I want to give you is that CF, unfortunately, is one of the areas where clinical trials are relevant, because we don't have great therapies for everyone. And so ongoing science is something that's not only important for researchers and clinicians to know about, but increasingly patients are getting educated, families are getting educated, so they can understand how to navigate the world of potentially relevant clinical trials. And we've built clinical trial tools for a variety of our communities, and here is an example of a tool that we built for the CF community, which organizes trials actually based on the way the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation has done on their site, in a way that's really easy for patients to navigate. And we've built this with feedback from a lot of the members of our communities, including the CF community. So here, for example, for Calideco, here are the 3 trials that are currently open, that are in phase 2, and we can click on that cell in the table, see the specific trials, and click through to go to the trial details page, for example, to perhaps contact the researchers or read more, and perhaps start a conversation with the peer community about a particular trial. You know, I heard about this trial, or my clinician mentioned it, but I hadn't heard about that therapy before. Do any of you have experience with it? What should I expect? What other questions might I ask my clinician next time I see them? So all of this is a context where we're convinced that we can complement and improve each of our ability to get the best care possible for ourselves and our loved ones by learning from each other, by learning which questions we might ask next, and complement the wonderful care that we're hopefully getting from our clinicians by collaborating with our peers. So I think what I'll do is pause there, go back to the screen that just shows the welcome page, the landing page, where people can join the community, and see if there are any questions. The microphone is coming.
So let's pretend that I'm new to this whole community and I don't understand any of this online stuff, because that's pretty much true about online things. And Sue, how do I find you? I just go to smartpatients.com. What does it cost? Is it free? Is it a nationwide network? Is it safe? Is my physician going to be able to read my comments? Can you tell us a little bit more in depth about that part of it?
Those are really important questions. So you can find the community by searching for it on Google or typing in smartpatients.com, or even going directly to this very tailored page that's at smartpatients.com/cystic fibrosis. This is a community system that's really been built specifically for the health context, so we've done a few things differently. For example, it's only for patients and caregivers. So while we love clinicians, I happen to be a clinician, I have lots of clinician friends, clinicians actually aren't invited to the community because the wishes of the community, as we've learned and continue to listen very carefully to them, is that they don't want others listening to their conversations. They actually are delighted with some of the work that we do, that we collaborate with some medical centers to help them understand some of the issues in general that patients talk about between visits that maybe could be addressed in new ways during visits and around the activities that go on with the healthcare system. But this is for patients and families. The information stays here. You have to be signed in. The conversations aren't indexed by search engines, so they can't be found by someone who's not a member of the community. It's free. There's no advertising. The way that we keep the system running is that we collaborate with healthcare systems and researchers and help them get input from patients about things like, how could we build a clinical trial that's more patient-friendly, or how could we improve our services at the medical center to better understand, to better incorporate the needs that patients have. And the projects that we do like that are really transparent and actually are driven in many times by the community that asks us, how can we influence the research process? How can we improve the system? And we've been fortunate so far to be able to facilitate projects like that and get fees and grants from our partners that allow us to do that. And then we also work with advocacy organizations. They don't have any money, so we work with them for free, and that's part of what we're about. So the idea is a safe, patients and families only place to learn from each other.
May I ask then, how is this monitored? Okay, I mean, certainly anyone can enter an email address and, just join into the, join in the CF community. And certainly you wouldn't know from the email address whether or not they are, have CF. So how is this monitored?
So we have some tricks, not all of which I will say publicly, so that we can make sure that they continue to work. But the most important aspect of how the communities work from a quality control perspective, which I think is one way of characterizing your question, is that it's based on the culture that we build into the community. So we work very carefully with our collaborators, in this case a group of CF patients and parents, to nurture especially the initial phases of the community, which includes setting an expectation among these peers of how they will interact with each other. So for example, if someone joins and says, I'm a patient or I'm a parent, and I've been having success with X, Y, or Z. And let's say that X, Y, Z is something that is an unproven therapy, or perhaps even more extreme, has been proven not to work or even be harmful. There'll be a response quite quickly from someone else in the community, and it'll be polite and respectful, and probably it'll be along the lines of, welcome, you're not alone. Do you have any recent evidence that you could point us to about what you're suggesting? I've actually read that that's been disproven, or that I can't find any data to support it. And whenever possible, we like to talk about therapies that are approved. And so there's a culture, you can almost think of it as the people that are in these, there's a lot of people in these communities who feel that they don't have time for misinformation. And so they politely but firmly challenge that information and even sometimes ask someone to take it elsewhere if necessary. And we have tools that we use to help facilitate that process. But when we build a successful community, it's the community that's fundamentally responsible for that and makes it work really well. I mean, the bottom line is that patients and families are more motivated than anyone else in the healthcare system to help ensure that they are getting good quality information. That doesn't mean that they can always do it successfully on their own, but if you build a community, they're not on their own. They have each other, and there's almost always pockets of expertise in the community about almost every topic that comes up. It's a very powerful phenomenon when it works well. So the Smart Patients communities overall have been going for a little over 2 years now. The cystic fibrosis community, it's been such a whirlwind that I might give you the wrong answer, but about half a year, and it's growing quite nicely, and the quality of the conversations has been wonderful.
I have a question. You mentioned you have collaborations with pharmaceuticals and other probably equipment, device. How do you? I guess I'm sure that their collaborations are based on some evidence that you show regarding the conversations that happen online. Do they basically see some of that conversation? Okay, I mean things like certainly they have to have some sort of evidence that they're willing to support you with.
Right. So a couple of clarifications. So when we work with either research collaborators, which includes both those in academic centers as well as in industry and pharmaceutical companies, or with medical centers, a couple of important sort of limitations or rules around that. One is that they're not invited into the communities, as we alluded to earlier. The other is that they're also not invited to push information into the community. So there's no sort of sponsored information or information from collaborators that goes in. It's actually the opposite. So most of the projects that we do involve a conversation or a survey that we might say, one of our research partners has asked for our help in designing a clinical trial, and specifically, they want to make sure, they want to figure out what are the most important outcomes that matter to this community. And an implicit requirement for any such project is that the community has to think it's a worthwhile project, or else they're going to say, whatever. And so this isn't about sort of gathering data and putting it in a database and selling access to that data. That's not what we do. What we're building is a system of and a way that the healthcare system can invite patients to collaborate in different ways, whether that's in designing scientific clinical trials, or in building better processes about how to help prepare patients for their next clinic visits. So it's very much a sort of, it's transparent, the projects are opt-in, and it's about inviting patients to collaborate. And one of the things that we really like about the way that we're doing it so far, and hopefully we can get better and better at it, is that there's a quality control mechanism built in there, and that if we're invited, if someone asks us to do a project, even if we think it's a good project, or we're excited about it because someone wants to pay us to do it, if the community doesn't think it's a good project, we can't get it done. And I think that's actually a very healthy forcing function or healthy constraint.
I do have one question from our online viewer. How big is the network? And to join, is it simply providing an email address?
So the network, I should have done my homework before, but I think it's a few hundred people. It's not, it's a pretty young community. It's growing nicely, but it's a few hundred people. And I realized that one question that was asked earlier that I didn't answer, it is across the country. So it's one of the beautiful things about the internet is that you don't have to be in the same place, and that allows people to learn from each other who are getting care at different places in different parts of the country. And to join, you request an account, and you simply, all you do need to provide is an email address. We review everyone's request. We contact people, and we may have a conversation with you, but then the only thing that you need to provide on the site, besides your email address, so that we can keep in touch with you, and your email address becomes your username, you then have to create a password and create a display name, which is however you want to be seen on the site. One thing that I forgot to mention when we were looking at the site, and I'll just refer back to it briefly, is that we assign everyone, in addition to someone requesting picking a display name, we assign everyone a random sort of little artistic image that becomes their profile picture, and then if you want to, you can replace it with a picture that you upload, but you don't have to. And you can see here that seems like about half the people in the CF community have replaced their automatically generated picture with a profile picture, and some have just let it be, maybe because they thought it was really pretty.
Do you have to be I guess, over the age of 18 or 21 to join the community?
Good question, and I have to refer back to our, that's one of the important legal questions. I think the answer is, and I'll send you a note if it turns out I was wrong, I think the answer is that you need to be 14 or over.
Okay.
My colleague Gilles is in the audience. He'll yell if he disagrees.
13.
You think it's 13? So there's a lot of different state laws about that govern what it's okay to invite people to do online. I think we ended up going with 14 to cover all the states, but it says there's a link to all sort of the rules when you sign up, and that's just basically for your own safety and for us to make sure that we're following the law.
Well, I would think that that would actually be good for the CF community, because there is the big issue about how to transition from pediatrics to adults. And I would, as time goes on and you're able to do some more research on who your members are, to see if you're able to pull in some of the teenagers that maybe don't have a way to access information or to talk to other people with CF in a very safe and secure way, but can get some tips on how to transition into that adult care, because that is a really big topic. So I'm actually glad that you're allowing the teenagers in, and I know the way that you've set up the program, it's very safe and it's monitored, and so I think it's very good. I use it, so
and I hope that one thing that I hope that we see more of, we've had several conversations that have been really encouraging and I think helpful, certainly gratifying for our team to learn from and support, is people who are dealing with issues like transition, and for them to be able to hear from young adults who have gone through it. It's sort of, it's almost like having a virtual system of buddies, someone who has recently gone to college or is in college or is a recent college graduate, and can talk about the things that were most helpful for them, in particular in the context of their disease. I remember one conversation which talked about, where someone really encouraged everyone who was getting ready to go to school, don't be shy and don't forget to ask if you can have a private room, because in this case I think it was people dealing with an illness where they have quite regular infusions. And I think the same goes with therapy with nebulizer treatments and using the vest, and it would probably be another extra dimension of sharing space with people who may or may not understand what you're going through, and things that for many of us it wouldn't occur to us to ask, and even if it would occur, maybe we don't have, we're not as not bold enough to ask, but if we get encouraged to make sure to do that and know that it's a possibility, that we can do so.
Are there any other questions? Ronnie, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Very interesting, and I think, as I've mentioned before, I think the two presentations tonight really dovetailed nicely because, again, I don't think you could have too many tools to use in what we call the CF toolbox as you go forward in life. The journey can be very difficult, and going to college is a big decision. And also, if you're isolated, you might have a bad bug. To be able to talk to your peers and get their experience on something like smartpatients.com, I think is really very, very important. So I appreciate both of you being here tonight, as I know the audience appreciates both of you coming tonight. We appreciate the time. And I'd also like to thank Respirtech, Genentech, and Chiesa USA for sponsoring tonight's program. And we're not over yet because we have one more CF Discovery Series in November. And that one is with Julie Mattel. She is a clinical dietitian at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. It will be on November 11th. And the topic is gastrointestinal challenges in cystic fibrosis, enzymes, laxatives, and beyond. And I can promise you that that will be a very interesting discussion. So please do join us, whether you can come in person or online. We appreciate you coming tonight, and please, if you could, fill out your evaluation forms on tonight's speakers. We would really, really appreciate that. And those who are here in the audience, please stay and have some treats with us, and we'll get to know each other better. So thank you, Ronnie, and thank you, Carla, very much for joining us at the CF Discovery Series. Good night.